Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, and welcome again to another session for today. And my name is Jay. I'll be your host for today. And first and foremost, I'd like to welcome you all to JobStreet's first ever, or first of its kind, rather, virtual career fair. And we know that 2020 has been a very challenging year for everyone, but the good news is the market is reopening and recovering very well in 2021, actually, right? So as your career partner, JobStreet, we are here to help you make the most of this opportunity. So we have put up 3 days event to provide you with opportunities to interact live with a wide range of companies. So if you're going to go to our website, you're probably going to see there a lot of companies participating for you to go through and check out their job ads posting as well, right? And if you are that lucky enough, you can also get invited with our one-on-one virtual interviews as well. And not only that, because we understand that competitiveness in today's market is very high, right? So we understand that you probably have questioned yourself, am I competitive enough to to compete in the market? We also have collaborated with Future Learn to offer free certified courses. And these courses are spread across digital marketing, robotics, cybersecurity, finance, HR, and so much more that you can actually choose from. Okay, so just have to be sure to check this out at our virtual career fair by clicking on the banner that says level up your career at the main page of our page for virtual career fair. Okay, and for any of you that need career advices to navigate uncertainty, we also have partnered with professional career coaches to address your questions on the spot, like you can actually chat with them right away. And you just have to also click a button there that says get prepped with career advisors so that you can start speaking or chatting with our career coaches as well. And with that said, I'm not going to take it too long. I'll leave you to explore the virtual career fair. And also join me today is Ari. She's our JobStreet career coach, and she would like to actually talk about now stories about our career actually. So the question there is, what's your career story? So probably going to hear about how do you want to leverage on your career story to make it as in your advantage when you wanted to get potential employers to be matched with. All right. So without further ado, Ari, are you there? Hello.
Hi, Jay. Thank you so
Hi.
much for the introduction and glad to be here as well.
Right. So
Yeah,
I'm gonna pass over the floor to you. Take it over.
thank you very much, Jay. And a very good afternoon, everyone, to this live stream of the JobStreet Career Fair. So let me just go ahead and share my screen over here. And I think Jay has already given me a bit of introduction over here. So my career story is really about being a people developer. So I do that and I help organizations and individuals build capabilities. And I do that through various roles I've done before within HR. I'm currently a career coach. I also do training, especially in career development. So really that's, the gist of my career story, but that hasn't always been the case. So anyway, to get us started, I'm going to share with you 5 career stories and very short stories because this is being about career story talk. And I'm going to see if you can guess who are the character or the main author of this story over here. All right, so let's get started into the first story. And I'm going to share with you about this person and I'd like you to guess who this person is. So this person is actually a superhero, except that he wasn't always a superhero. In fact, when he was growing up, he was actually a nerdy student that one day found that he had superhero abilities. And instead of using it for his personal gain, he decided to use it for the good of people. He wanted to help people. So he actually designed this wrist shooting device. And through his journey as well, he actually found a mentor who actually upskilled him and taught him the ropes of being a superhero. So can you guess who this person is? Well, if you guess Spider-Man, then you are right. I'm going on to the second story now. And this one here is a real person now this time. So this is an American. And he was actually a high school dropout. He actually started on a business idea to kind of, get traffic reports, collate them, and automate it so that traffic engineers could actually use these reports. So he actually had a business out of this. But unfortunately, the business model was flawed and the company ended up actually making a lot of losses. So he had to close that part of the business. But that part of the business and the mistakes that he learned, he actually took that with his partner and opened a new complete computer empire, which we know now as Microsoft. So did you guess that person was Bill Gates? If you are, good on you. So I'm now on my third story over here, and I like to bring it a little bit more local this time. So this person is actually a local celebrity. Now, she didn't always start as a local celebrity either. She actually was a ballerina who actually was teaching some dancers in what was then called MediaCorp, which is MediaCorp, present-day MediaCorp. And that actually started off her acting career. Now, in her 40s, she actually had a whole career shift where she was at a crossroads, deciding whether should she go back into show business or should she chase after something that was more akin to her personality, which was very adventurous and entrepreneur. So she actually took the latter route despite what people objected. And she's now doing in relation to media, but also in her interest of health and education. So that person is Wong Li Lin. So I'm up to my fourth story now. How are you guys doing? Did you all get so far the three of them correct? So my fourth story is about a gentleman, a Singaporean. He's in his 30s. And not long ago, about a few years back, he landed his dream job in this travel tech industry. But unfortunately, last year when the pandemic struck, he actually lost his job. And he was actually facing a very difficult time for a couple of months before, he woke up to a realization that he really needed to, tap on his networks. He really needed to do something about his interests, which was in digital marketing. And from then on, he went out to make contacts. And then that's where it actually threw him into a new industry and a new job, where he was trying to convert offline customers to an online platform in a totally different industry. Well, this one here, you may not know him, but he's actually one of my friends, Mr. To. But you know what? This may be a story that you might also be familiar with. It might be someone you know, or it might even be someone very similar to your case as well. Which brings me to my fifth story right now, my fifth and last story over here, which is what I want to ask you. Which one of these would best describe your career story? So in this case over here, I'm going to give you just two options here, as you can see. A, as you can see, it's a very straight path. Or B, as you can see here, it kind of looks like a plate of bihun spaghetti all mashed up in there. So if you chose A, then lucky you, your career has been very straightforward. But I'm willing to bet that a lot of your career and a lot of you out there is probably going to be B. And that's also a very similar theme as compared to the 4 stories that I've shared with you earlier as well. So you're not alone. So if B is so common, it's so common that we even have a whole theory behind it. It's called the chaos theory of careers. So it's actually a mixture of events, planned events, like, when you apply for a certain job, or, you're planning your next move, or you get a promotion, or your age. These are all actually planned events. But a large part of it is actually unplanned. Like, for example, when we meet people that unexpectedly, when we learn from our mistakes that have happened that didn't quite go the way that we want to, when we have, like the pandemic last year, where we had something we had no control over. Or it could also be in a positive sense sometimes, where you've actually, met acquaintances that you haven't met in a long time, and they said, hey, would you like to actually, be interested to be considered for this position? Or a client that I once actually coached as well, and the person said that, while helping out a friend actually in their wedding, they found out that, hey, they had an interest in maybe doing something like event planning. So as you can see over here, our careers are made up of, there are various kind of events, both planned and unplanned. So the beauty of our career story, it really gives us insight into what we enjoy, what we value, and even insights into what we do not like. Now, if we actually reflect on these stories as well, you notice there's usually a theme or what we're going to talk about in the later part of the talk called our brand. And how do we use this brand to then leverage? So it's most powerful when we are self-aware of what is this brand or what is the story that we're trying to tell others. And we find other companies that we can connect our brand to. And lastly, when we do find those companies, how then do we tell our story such that it will be a great fit for the organization? So really, that is the focus of what we're going to be talking about today. What is the uniqueness in our career story? How do we then connect this story, this brand, to the organizations out there and tell them this amazing story about ourselves? Are you ready? Let's get started then. So our first part about it is our career story. So our career story, when I ask my clients, tell me about your career story, it's very common that they're probably going to be listing a whole history of their jobs. Or maybe if they were in one single job, it's just going to be, oh, I just did this job. But really our career story is made out of many chapters, which are involving like projects, they're involving work, volunteers, decisions, people that we meet along the way. That actually is our career journey, our career stories within our career journey. So we need to find out what is unique within those stories. So our uniqueness is the one that's going to be setting us apart. And I know this question here is probably going to boggle some of you, just like it's done for some of my clients, because they will probably tell me, Ari, there's nothing special about me, or they'll tell me that they don't know. But you know what? Everybody has uniqueness about them. There's no one person out there which has the exact same story as you do. So where do we start? Especially if you were thinking about a career switch or if you were uncertain about your job. So let's try to make sense amidst all this chaos in our career story. So I'd like you to think back about when you're doing this exercise. In fact, if you'd like to, you got a piece of paper, you can do that right now as well. Or if not, I'd like you to think about it as well. In your career journey since you've started, what are some of the 3 to maybe maximum 5 most significant and defining moment in your career? All right. And when you have thought about these parts over here, what we're going to do is that we're going to extract certain things about within our story. So what do we extract or what do we find out? Well, the first thing we're going to look for is our values in these stories. So for example, in Spider-Man, you realize that his value is about helping people. All right, so that has been a theme, a constant theme in his whole career story journey as well. So values are things that actually help us to make certain decisions or to tell us what is right from wrong. The other part that we want to look at is from these career stories that we have, what is the interest that comes out from it? So if you remember in the example of Bill Gates, his interest was all about computers. So that's also a topic, that makes you excited or can get you talking on it for ages. Those are interests. The third thing that we're going to be looking at in those stories over there is your personality, because our personality does play a part. So for example, in the story of Wong Lei Lin, you realize when she was at a crossroads, she was thinking about which path should she pursue. And one of the reasons that she pursued the other path of doing on her own was because it was of an entrepreneur personality. So we need to consider how that plays a part as well in our career journey. The fourth one that we want to consider also is our skill sets. So we need to take an inventory of what our skills are. So in the example of my friend, Mr. To, it was his example where his interest, his skill set in digital marketing, where he could actually apply it in his new job. And finally, we also want to consider what are the kind of experiences as well. What are the work experience that we have done, we have exposure to, and it doesn't have to be just in our jobs. It could be things that, we really did it outside our work. It could be projects, it could be volunteer works. So these are the things that we want to consider in making sense of our chaos of our careers. Now, sometimes, probably some of you may be out there at this point in time, may be unemployed. And the question you might ask me is, Ari, I've been unemployed for a while. I'm a stay-home parent for the past couple of years. I don't have any skills or any experiences. But is it true? I mean, if you've ever been to the wet market, I go to the wet market once in a while, and it takes a lot of skills to actually have negotiation and stakeholder management as well. Otherwise, it's very easy for you to get cheated in the wet market because you probably end up buying something more expensive or things that you don't need. So you see, it's very important to find out what were you doing when you're not employed as well. I'm sure you've picked up skills along the way. So once you've done this, this kind of puts together an inventory. And what you're looking for here in your stories is a theme. What are some of the reoccurring themes that consistently come out in your stories? What are the consistent values that keep coming up as well? So these are the things that help us to inform us, what is our story and what is our brand that we are drawn to and what we're good at doing. Because that at the end of the part, when we form our next part over here, which is our brand, actually comes from our career story. And that is why sometimes when certain clients that I see, if they want to switch or they have been unemployed for a while or they're unsure about what kind of careers that they want to do, it is more than likely is that their brand is not as clear. So they have no idea perhaps about what kind of skills they would like to utilize, what kind of interest. So that's why this step is so important over here. So let me give you an example. Let's go back to Bill Gates. So Bill Gates, let's say, when you read of the various stories that are about him out there, you will actually see there's this few certain themes that keep coming up as well, and that forms his brand. So based on what I know of him out there is that he's a person that really likes to think about possibilities, all right? These are actually values, all right? He's very skilled in computers, so that's a skill and both an interest as well. As you can see, I've also highlighted that he's also interested in charity and doing in the area of medical and poor communities, working with poor communities. So as you can see, this starts to be his brand. These are the areas that he'll like to work in and what he offers to other people. So then the question, if you think back about the career story or the exercise that you might have thought about just now, what are some of the words that describe you consistently? What do you want to be known for? That's also very important because that might inform your next step as well. So for me, my story was about being a people developer. What about yours? So that's the first step when it comes about what is your career story, is having clarity about what makes your brand unique. So if we go on to the second part here, it's really now that you have your brand, you have your story, how then do you connect it to the outside world, which are the other companies there? So if you take a look at what I have here, so we're still using the example of Bill Gates. So on one hand, you have you on one side of the picture. And on the other hand, you have all the organizations out there, like all the hirers that are probably on the JobStreet Career Fair right now. There are many out there. But what you want to find is which companies out there would have a very similar story to yours, or which companies out there would have problems that would need your story, your brand to try and help them solve their issues. So at this intersect over here where my arrow is, that's where we call the match, right? And in other words, sometimes you would think about there's also other words, the Japanese word ikigai, if you've heard of it as well, that's also we're talking about the overlap here. So how do you find what organization, what companies out there that would match this? Because I'm sure you wouldn't be using your brand to apply to every single company out there, right? You need to be strategic as well because you want to show that you're a good fit. So that involves you understanding the labor market a bit better. And you could do that by various ways. For example, you could research the organizations out there. What are the organizations out there that might have a problem or a story very similar to yours? So in the case of Bill Gates, for example, his story, his brand is about working with computers and working with poor communities in the area of medical. So could you think of any companies or any industries out there that would be a similar match to this brand or this story? On top of my head, I think there is, for example, like UNICEF. All right, more locally, maybe you might be thinking of social service organizations because they do work with poorer communities. So this is how we actually start to research, and are these companies out there in line or share the same story as well? So that's where you do need to do your due diligence and actually prepare and search. So the second part that we need to also understand the labor market is perhaps we can actually do some information interviewing. So that would mean talking to people within that industry, all right, to find out really how do people solve problems in their areas, all right? It could be even questions like, what's important for a candidate to be in that particular company? So you've already done your research with the organizations, but now you're going a little bit more in depth. So that's why when we talk about the next part, network also becomes very important as well. So are you going out there making the effort to find out a little bit more about the industry? Now, especially if you're doing your career switch, this is also going to be a very important piece. Now, the third aspect where we want to understand the labor market is to also look at the job descriptions. All right. So if you found a job that you really would be interested to apply for, maybe at this career fair, print it out and highlight all the words that connect with your brand as well, because that is a good way for you to also, later on during the resume or the interviews to really also link and show that you're aligned to the words in the job description as well, by connecting your brand at the end of the day. So this gives you a handle of how you can then connect yourself to the organization or find the organizations out there. But sometimes, some job seekers, they tell me again, so, hey, Ari, that there are not many job opportunities for me out there. I've tried to find, but there are not so many there. So the question is this. Now, I'd like you to take a look at the circle, the blue circle on the screen right now, and watch what happens. Did you see that? I'm going to do it one more time so you can see what happened to the blue circle. Did you notice? So the number of organizations there may or may not change. It's unlikely, but you can't control that. But what is within your control is the skills that you have. Perhaps there is maybe a gap between your skills and what the organization needs. So perhaps it's time for you to upskill so it gets you closer to what the organization needs. So that's where you'll see more overlaps and more choices. Also consider sometimes that it could be our experience. Maybe it requires us to go and get experience out there, maybe through volunteering, through project work, all right? And sometimes I do see through some of the clients that I work with, it's also a bit of the mindset issue, all right? There's no perfect company out there that would match every single checkbox that we're looking out for, but there could be companies that come pretty close. So that's why we're also looking for companies that we connect to. We want to ask ourselves the question as well, what is really important to us? And could I add value within this company? All right. The other aspects also that we could see in more overlap is really about having perhaps more skill sets, more interest, and more experience. So we need to be creative in the way that we also tell our stories in this area here. So at this point in time, you realize that it's not yet about applying to the companies, but it's really finding companies that would actually connect to who we are and how we can connect with them through our brand stories as well. So which brings me to my last point over here, right? Which is really about telling our brand stories. So now that we have our brand, what makes us unique, we have actually shortlisted certain companies out there that really would resonate with us. It's really then telling our stories to get the companies and the hiring managers to take notice of us. Now, before we do that, we want to make sure that we also know what is the next step of our career so that we know how to tell our story, right? Because sometimes when it comes to resumes, and I see some certain job seekers who apply for certain jobs, they just simply take their resume and they apply it as it is. So they send the same resumes to all the different organizations. But different organizations are looking for different things. And for you, your story might not be the story that you were telling previously. Maybe you were an engineer last time, but right now you want to switch into a different field. So that's why your next step, knowing what is your next step of your story, is also going to be very important. So for example, you might be a fresh graduate that just graduated and trying to land your first job. So then your story is going to be about how could you then use your experience that was non-work related to then tell the employer about the brand that you have and that would connect with the jobs that they are looking for, right? So you might be thinking about your internships, your volunteer experience, things that you did in school that you could actually add value when you tell your story. Or you could be somebody that is thinking about a complete different shift. As you can see, the arrow has gone completely the other way. So in this case, the story that you're going to tell is what are your transferable skills that would be of interest to the organization? How does your brand connect to the brand of the organization? What is your motivations for shifting? All right, it may be something that that you really enjoyed but didn't have the chance to. So now's the time for you to tell them what are your motivations within your brand story. Or you could be progressing into another job, same industry, but you just want to progress into another job. So in this case, instead of skills, it's be more your experience as well. Your story that you're going to share highlights your experience in relation to that job that you're applying for. Or if you were unemployed, then what were you doing when you were unemployed that would add value into this job over here? And sometimes our story could be also that we just want to scale back a bit from work. Maybe we have reached a certain area that was really high, and now we just want to take a step back. So when you're actually kind of applying for a lower position job, you want to tell them what is your motivation that you are applying for this job. So knowing these things will then help you to tell your brand story to the right people as well. So how do we tell brand stories? So I'm going to share with you 3 main areas that we can actually tell others about our stories. So the first is no surprise, it's about our networks. So one, we could do it on our professional social networks where we start to share our expertise, we volunteer, we join groups on social platforms that resonate with us so that when people kind of look through our profile, they go, oh, okay, so this is what this person is all about. Networking is also very key when it comes to people. Networks are people that we connect with. Are you connected to the industry that you would like to be joining if you were doing a career switch? All right. Are you networking with people in the industry to kind of find out more about it and broaden your prospects? A lot of people actually shy away from networking because they feel like it's challenging or they just don't want to invest the time. But when you plant the seeds, network is also a great way to share your story. The second part that you could also tell your career story, your career brand story, is through your resume as well. So like I shared the example earlier, sometimes when we actually, send in our resume, the problem is that most of the time we just set a generic one, or our resume still doesn't kind of share our brand. What is it that we are trying to tell them? What's the most important thing? Now, if you maybe just copy your entire resume and put it into a word cloud, what are some of the words that come up the most? That kind of gives you an idea of what your brand that you're telling other people could be. So if you were career switching, you want to think about what is your resume? Is your resume telling the story of what you were? Or is your story telling the employer about your skill sets that's relevant to the job that you're trying to switch to? All right, so these are some of the things that you want to consider when you're telling your story in your resume in terms of your experience, your skills, your career summary as well. And lastly, we also want to tell our career story, our brand story during the interview as well. I mean, if you've gotten past the first round for the resume and gotten an interview, then this is a great time for you to also share your career story as well. And we're going to talk about this a bit more tomorrow. So if you'd like to find out more this aspect, join us tomorrow, right? So to kind of summarize, I know time has flown by so fast. All right, I'm going to share with you a little video all right, to kind of summarize what we've been talking about for the past half an hour. So if you're on earphones, just mind the volume a bit. It doesn't have much conversation. It's going to be just some background music, but take a look at the video that I'm going to be showing. This is called The Missing Piece. All right. So just wanted to kind of bring that up to where we are going to be summarize, oops, which in summary over here from that video there, it's a beautiful story that, you know, things can happen and things can happen planned and unplanned, even though whether it's maybe something that at a point in time we didn't feel it was working out for us. But what's most important is during that time, we kind of discover who we are. We're self-aware of our story, and we can always definitely find something unique about us within our career story. And it's also about finding organizations out there, because not all organizations will fit, all right? But it's taking the time to spend and find those organizations and tell them our amazing story. All right, and if we need to, we can upskill and evolve so that we can close that gaps. But really, it's the opportunity for us to share our career story. So with that, that's the end of the story for now. So I'm going to hand over the time now and invite my panelists. We're in a Q&A section at this moment. So before I bring them on, I'm just going to share with you a little bit about who they are. So they are Winston. Winston is executive coach with QDA Asia. So his story is really about over the last 10 years, he has coached and facilitated individuals from both the public and private sector. And also my friend Gerald. So Gerald is an experienced career developer that's very passionate about helping others through career development, both at the individual and at the systemic level as well. So right now, I'm going to invite Gerald Tan and Winston, and I'm going to stop screen share so they can see all of us. And we're going to take a look at some of the questions as well that you have. So let me have a look at the questions, and then we can also kind of move from there. Okay, so we have a question from Empress Chrysanthemum. Okay, maybe just let's see, Gerald, you can deal with this one over here. So her question is about dealing with mature job seekers. So in this case, she thinks that maturity and great experiences could help. But how do you think mature job seekers can best add value with their career story? Gerald, I wonder if any thoughts about that.
Thanks, Ari. Empress Chrysanthemum, interesting name there. Well, firstly, about this point on dealing with mature job seekers, and I'm looking through the list as well. I know some of you in this call, you're asking about wondering if you are older, right, and you're wondering how do you exactly deal with job search because you're worried about ageism. You're worried that employers might not give you a fair shot at a job opportunity. So what's the best way to present yourself, right? So there are a few things that mature job seekers would face. The first thing is, I think, because of the life stage you're at, some employers might be wondering, why do you want a job? Any job for that matter, right? If today you're in your 50s or 60s, some employers do think about the long term. How long are they supposed to be working with you for? And why do you want this job? So the why becomes a lot more important. And for you, if you're in your 50s and 60s, perhaps money is not just the only thing anymore. There are other things like maybe flexibility. Maybe you want to pursue some passion that you had not had the chance to do so for the earlier part of your career. So there are a lot of questions that need to be answered. These questions form your why. The why behind getting a job. So besides merely pointing out that you have the skills and the right experiences for a job, you have to make additional effort to explain the why. Why are you looking for a job in this company? Why this industry? Why are you even continuing to work? What's the reasons behind it? What do you want to work for beyond money? Beyond just a pay? Is there something that you're looking for? And when you're able to answer this why, it helps the employer and the recruiter to perhaps understand you as a person a little bit more, to know that this is more than just a job. You're actually bringing a lot of your transferable skills as well as what's the integration with your own life, right? What you're actually looking for in the next stage, so they can see you as a better fit. Okay, so that's one. I'm going to go for another one. Besides just, if you're just applying for jobs online, and I know that might be sometimes cause frustration because you don't know what happens, right? Support your online job application by learning to meet people. If today you see something on JobStreet that you kind of like, and then you can ask around, use your network, your friends, to ask around anybody around that particular role that you're looking for. Ask them, what does a person need to do in order to be successful to do this role? Ask your friends, ask your network, the people that you worked with before, right? And then you find out that perhaps they might have interesting insights on how you can actually move into that role, right? And then that's where you actually have more than just applying for online jobs. You actually have a multi-pronged job search strategy, right? So in this era, currently our job market, the ratio is, I believe, is about 0.6, sorry. That means for every 10 workers, 6 will be employed, 4 will be unemployed. That's our latest MOM jobs to worker ratio. So that would mean that competition for jobs is harder. And if today you're a mature worker, you have to ask the right questions, answer the whys of yourself, and then start to think about how you're going to do job search a little bit differently. All right. So that's the sorry, that's a really long answer from me, Ari.
No, that's a great that's a great answer, Gerald. Because also there was another question as well from Tony as well with a very similar question. So I hope that those the two of you, Empress, Chrysanthemum, and Tony, found that useful. I'm a bit mindful of the time because I know that both our career coaches have probably got to go into their rooms over there. So I just wanted to ask Winston, because probably just Winston, one last question, because I noticed some of them have a similar question, is, how do you overcome the kind of, after the interviews and the various application, what is one advice you would give our job seekers out there?
Okay, the quick question is that I didn't really get the question. Can you help me to understand the question better?
Yeah.
What do you need to overcome what?
I guess it's because a lot of them, they're feeling this, it does take a toll on their well-being after, applying many times and very unsuccessful. What tips what's one main tip before we kind of round off today?
Right. Thank you very much for clarifying. So very much I will want to share with every one of you out there is to have self-care, right? You need to eat right and stay healthy. That's one thing. You got to find a hobby, and you got to find like-minded people and try to mix around with positive people, right? I'm not saying that your friends are not positive, but I'm just saying is that try to mix around with people who has positive energy transferring to you. And please do not give up. The whole true fact is that sometimes when you dig and dig and dig, and just when you are about to reach what you call the gold mine, then you just give up and that's it, and you move on. You get dejected. So one of the things that I always share with my client is, yes, you need to have action, but important thing is to have accountability. Accountability in the sense whereby you share with somebody whom you love, and you know they are there to encourage you and to partner with you as you walk this journey. So career coach is one of them who can actually partner with you and journey together with you, and try to work together with your career coach and co-create this whatever that you want to reach, the destination that you want to reach. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much, Winston, for sharing that. So I hope that it's also answered two of your questions out there. So at this point in time, that's all we have for today. We are going to be back here tomorrow as well. So if you'd like to have questions, or if questions not be answered, maybe chat with us tomorrow. Okay, so thank you very much, Gerald and Winston, for joining on as panelists. I know you have to be off already, so we'll see you all around next time. Jay, over back to you.
Hi, thank you, Ari. Thank you, Gerard. Thank you, Winston. And yes, it's very insightful. And my favorite part is actually the video, like moving forward, how do you going to roll forward to your future career as well, right? Yeah, unfortunately, we don't have much time, but it's okay. If you still wanted to connect with our career coaches, you can still go to our website, our career fair. There will be a allotted booth for the career advisors. You just have to click on that button over there so you can chat with them directly, right on the spot. And thank you so much again, guys, for your staying and for sparing your time with us, your interest, and hopefully you have learned something that you can use up for your career advices as well. Hopefully we're gonna see you tomorrow. We still have few more sessions on the next 2 days as well. Just to remind you, we are partnered with Career Future, or Future Learn rather. We have bunch of career coaches or career courses rather that you can actually select so that you can help you boost out your career advancement as well. All right, see you guys tomorrow. Have a great day.